I'm
I'm
gonna
ready.
hit the record again, and then we'll let them in. How do I? Why can I not do this? There it is. Almost got everybody in. Once we get there. All right. Hi, everybody. Welcome back. We're just going to get everybody in the room and then get going. So this is our week 3 of our return to driving, which is going to be expanded on a little bit tonight. Well, maybe I should just mention this is NeuroNights. Hopefully you're in the right place for that. We will get going with our third presentation here in just a moment. Just one piece of housekeeping is that tonight is going to be our last session for some time. So we're going to pick back up in the fall, but we are going to take a summer off. We've been doing this pretty consistently since the beginning of 2020, and I need to give my team a little break. So we're going to take a couple months off, and then we'll come back. We're going to spend a lot of time in the summer doing video editing and cutting up some of the videos that we've made into smaller bite-sized chunks so we can go through topics. So if there's anything you want to revisit during that time, you're welcome to come back and take a look at those. Those will all be posted up on our website. We also host them on our YouTube channel, which is all linked together. So you'll be able to find them very easily if you're able to get to our NeuroNights web page. Beyond that, I just want to say thanks again to all the survivor speakers that participated this spring. We had 3 speakers. Their stories are up on the website as well. Definitely take a look and see what they were willing to share with all of us, and the messages that they had for both the fellow survivors as well as our professional community. So with that, I think that's all I have to say. We're going to get to the good stuff tonight. So Claire, I'm just going to turn it right over to you and
Sure.
Take it away.
All right. Hi, everyone. My name is Claire Jennings. I'm a mobility program manager at the Central Ohio Transit Authority, or COTA, which you might know from the large buses that run around Columbus. I'm going to talk to you today about not our large buses, but our paratransit program called COTA Mainstream. And I'm also going to talk about some other services we might have that you might be interested in. So, oh, I guess I just went over this. I forgot I had this slide. So in this presentation, I'm going to go over what paratransit is and what our service is in Columbus. And I'm also going to talk about, I'm going to talk about our COTA Mainstream, our Mainstream on Demand, the travel training that we provide here at COTA, and also our COTA Plus. So I won't be really talking about those big buses, but maybe if you're interested, you can let me know and I can get back to you and tell you some more about that. Okay, so COTA Mainstream. So what is paratransit? Paratransit provides transportation for people with disabilities who are unable to use the regular fixed route service in their transit area. So fixed route service, just so to explain that sort of term, is the larger buses that run on regular routes throughout Franklin County. So all of our fixed route transit lines are wheelchair accessible. They have ramps and they also kneel so that people that are in mobility devices can access our larger buses. If a person cannot use fixed route for any reason, they might be eligible for COTA Mainstream, the paratransit service that we provide in Franklin County. So eligibility for Mainstream. So to get access to our Mainstream program, you have to be deemed eligible. Now, this is not based on any medical diagnosis or any specific type of disability. It's based on a person's functional ability to use that fixed route service, those big buses on those regular routes around Franklin County. So to meet the eligibility threshold, you have to be, the person has to be someone who cannot navigate the transit system without assistance, or someone who is unable to reach a transit stop for one reason or another. Eligibility can be unconditional, meaning you can use it whenever you need it. It can be conditional, meaning sometimes the conditions might be such that you are allowed to use it, like if you are unable to stand out in the sun for long periods of time, so maybe in the summer you could use it, or if it is in the winter and you can't access the transit stops due to ice and snow, you might be able to use it then in the winter. Or sometimes you could have a temporary eligibility, meaning if you had some sort of medical problem or medical issue that precluded you from using our big buses around town for a certain period of time. So it's a little complicated, but there's a lot of different levels of eligibility that you might be able to have. So if you think that you might qualify for our paratransit program, you can apply to Mainstream. Our applications are found online at cota.com/mainstream, or you can call 614-275-5828 and we'll send you a application in the mail. Now the applications are to be filled out by you or maybe a guardian, and part of it needs to be filled out by a medical professional. So a person would need to have it filled out by their doctor or a nurse. Once you're eligible, once you have applied and gotten access to Mainstream, we also provide an orientation to talk about how the program works and how to use all of the different services you might now have access to. So our core COTA Mainstream is the federally required bit of our paratransit system. So it's a shared ride. We have smaller vehicles that come door to door and pick you up at your house or wherever you are and take you to where you need to go. It runs the same hours as our big buses run. It is something that per federal legislation, we need to provide parallel service to people who can't access our bigger buses. So they run the same hours as our big buses. You have to start and end near a bus line. So you have to be 3/4 of a mile from a bus stop or a bus line. The cost is $3.50 one way per trip. You have to schedule in advance, at least up to a day in advance. There's also a pickup window because it's a shared ride. So you might be sharing the ride to and from your home to your destination with other people. They might get picked up along the way. We're also working on being able to book your trips online so that you could actually use the internet to book a trip, and then you'll be able to see the trip coming to you when it's near its time of arrival, which is exciting. We also have an on-demand system because being 3/4 of a mile from a bus line does not fit everyone in our county that may have a disability. There's lots of places our bus lines don't run. And we are now able to provide a really robust on-demand system, which works throughout Franklin County. So you have to be a Mainstream customer to access this, but it's a private ride, again, door to door, and they will come, you can book it up to an hour in advance. And it costs a little bit more though, because it runs throughout the county. So instead of $3.50, the on-demand costs $5 for the first 5 miles and then $1 for every additional mile. Our on-demand trips average about 8 miles. We know how long people ride it for, so that would be about $8 a ride. It's still cheaper than using Uber or Lyft, and you're also working with COTA, so you know that it's not a random stranger picking you up. It's someone that's been vetted by us. The hours are a little bit different because they don't need to parallel the fixed route lines, and they run Monday through Friday, 5:30 a.m. to 10 p.m. and Sunday and Saturday, 7:30 a.m. to 7:30 p.m.
Claire, can I stop for just a second? There was a clarification question. So,
yes.
So for Mainstream on demand, that is Franklin County only.
Yes.
Or Mainstream, is that also only Franklin County, or is
it is only Franklin County, and you have to be starting and ending your trip 3/4 of a mile from a bus line. So it's not as wide reaching as the on demand because you have to be near a bus line.
Got it.
You can get further in the county with the on demand system. It's a little complicated. I didn't include a map of our fixed route system because I wasn't going to talk about it, but I should have, just to show like there are a bunch of gaps where we don't have bus lines running. And so the on-demand system would allow people to get access to paratransit services outside of the areas that we are required to provide them in.
Okay, so essentially you're able to service the whole county.
Yes.
Between one or the other program.
Exactly.
Okay, thank you.
Exactly. Yep. It's a little confusing because I'm using also government speak, so I apologize. I try not to, but then I fall into the government speak traps because I work for the government, guys. It's just what happens. So, but yes, so the core mainstream is a shared ride, and you have to be within 3/4 of a mile of a bus stop. And the on-demand, you can go anywhere in Franklin County, and it's private ride. It's just a little more expensive because of that. Okay, so I'm going to talk about some other COTA services that you might not know about. One, that's me doing travel training. So I oversee our travel training program here at COTA, and it's available to anyone. Anyone that's interested in learning how to ride the bus or learning how to use any of our services, you can contact us at COTA, and we will help you. We work with individuals who are trying to learn more about the COTA system. We also work with groups. If you have a group that might be interested in learning, we can bring an out-of-service bus to a group and be able to experience the bus in a much lower stress situation. We tailor all of our trainings to the group or individual's needs and where they live and where they want to go. So we'll make sure that you understand how to figure out how you're going to get from point A to point B. And we're also going to give you a hands-on experience so you can really feel what it's like to be on a bus without doing it on your own for the first time by yourself. So our goal with travel training is to instill confidence in new COTA customers. We also have a new fare payment system, and we've been teaching on that a lot. But we cover how to choose the correct bus, how to ride the bus, and some common sense rules and tips. I think that riding the bus, once you've done it, especially if you've done it with a friend or a friendly person, once you've done it once, it's like a little bit like riding a bike in terms of like, okay, I know what to expect. I know where to look. I know how to, ring for the bell so the bus will stop when I need it to. So anyway, but it's what I do, and I do really enjoy it, and I think it's great. So if you're interested in travel training, look on our COTA website for travel training and give us a call. The last thing I wanted to talk about is COTA Plus, which is our micro transit system, which launched in 2019 and got expanded in the last couple of years during the pandemic. And if you don't live in an area that it exists in, you might not know about it. You might not even know about it anyway. So this is a zone-based program within the county. So we have these different zones within Franklin County where we offer this special service. So we offer it in Westerville, in the south side of Columbus, and in Grove City, and we have a special zone that operates a little differently in the northeast part of the county. You can see this on the slide. Up on the left-hand corner, there's a little map, a rough map of the county. So what is microtransit? If you don't work in transportation, you might not know what that means. It is a way of providing transit service on a smaller scale. So it is a way that we also are trying to expand our reach of our COTA services into areas that our big buses might not be able to get to. It acts sort of like an Uber or Lyft. You can either set up an account with an app, or you can set up an account with a telephone call to our customer service line, and they'll set you up with an account, and then you can call or use the app to get a ride to come to you. You might have to walk to the end of the block, but if you see one of these green vehicles coming for you, you can go and then hop on it to take a ride. And then in each of these zones, it's a $3 ride to go from one point in the zone to another point in the zone. So you have to stay within, if you're using the system in Grove City, you have to stay in Grove City. but you can use it to connect to a bus line to go further in the county, or you can take a bus into Grove City and then take the COTA Plus to another point in Grove City. It's just a way of us being able to be a little bit more flexible and get out to further places. The phone number, if you're interested in setting up an account, is 614-308-4400, or you can visit our COTA.com and click on COTA Plus as well. So in Grove City, it was our first zone that launched in 2019. It was only about half of the city, and now it's more than the city and encompasses a little bit outside of the city as well. But you can see on this map where you can connect to different COTA bus lines. If you're actually connecting from a COTA bus stop, if you've taken a bus into this zone, you can actually ride COTA Plus for free. Because it's a way of extending your trip on COTA. So in Grove City, it operates Monday through Friday, 5:30 a.m. to 8 p.m. We also have some special events coverage that we're doing with the city. And also you can connect to Grove City's COTA Plus line from the Great Southern Park and Ride. So we have a little island over to the east where you can pick up COTA Plus from there. Westerville's time is the same. It's Monday through Friday, 5:30 a.m. to 8 p.m. It also includes a couple of islands. You can pick up COTA Plus to go to or from Polaris, or also IKEA in the Topgolf area. So you can see too, there are a couple different ways you can connect to it from COTA, from the different bus lines or park and rides in the area. On the south side has a lot more bus lines that you can connect from. But it also, you can see here where all of the area that the south side encompasses. It operates 7 days a week, 5:30 a.m. to 8 p.m. And then the northeast zone is a little bit different in that it operates bus stop to bus stop. And instead of having a smaller vehicle, it's actually the large buses that come and pick people up. This area was put in as sort of an emergency zone during the beginning of COVID, when we retracted a lot of our bus lines at the beginning of the pandemic. But we're still having it operate now. So again, this was a way of making sure that people that needed to get to different job centers could get there. So it operates at a different time as well. It operates 7 days a week, 5 a.m. to 11 p.m. And the fares are only $2 a ride instead of $3, because it matches the fixed route service. Okay, and then those are all the slides that I have. Those are the different services I wanted to talk about. Because I'm sure that there are some questions about these services, but I'd be happy to answer them.
Thanks so much, Claire. So we can take questions. You can type them in the chat if you feel like it. You can raise your hand using the raise hand button, which is, I think, under reactions now. You can physically raise your hand if you like. We can let you ask your question out loud. So while you're thinking that through, I will open up some questions real quick. So Claire, this is a lot of different new services, right? When I think about COTA, I think about High Street up and down, and that's kind of it, right? So this is a lot to just kind of change a perception of. And so what's been sort of the reception for these services? Are people really using them? What are new riders kind of, what are they saying?
Well, the mainstream has bounced back from the pandemic in terms of ridership faster than the rest of COTA, basically because the people that use it, it's their only avenue to get around. So it makes sense that it's bounced back and people are using it almost as much as they were pre-pandemic. With our COTA Plus, it launched just before the pandemic, and then we expanded to Westerville, the South Side, and more of Grove City and the Northeast Zone, all in 2020 and 2021. So it's been a little bit slower growth because, we're still living in a very complicated world, as we all know. So I think that when people find out about it, I think they're really excited because it's a way of being able to get around your community in an easy way and a fairly inexpensive way. And it's instead of relying on maybe strangers that might come pick you up with Uber or Lyft, it's our drivers have all been vetted, that the vehicle is going to be clean, that the drivers are going to be trustworthy. And it's really, really great. I work with a lot of older adults in Westerville and Grove City to do outreach to them because the cities are no longer providing senior transportation the way they used to, because transportation is really hard and it's really expensive to keep up. So I've been doing outreach with them, and once they sort of figure out how to use it, they've been very excited about it to get to the senior center or get out to lunch or get to the grocery store to pick up stuff. So,
all right.
Yeah.
Harry, you got a question?
Yeah. I just was curious about the national laws on transportation and having to wear air masks, as we're seeing a woman wear one above Kiddo right now.
Right. So,
I know it's been an issue.
Yeah, so it's no longer mandated on any transit rides anywhere in the US because of a judge ruling that came down last month. We follow the federal regulations because we we get funding through the Federal Transit Administration. So we've been following the guidelines that are set out by that federal organization. So when that ruling came down and said that we can't mandate masks on different transportation things, it's no longer a mandate. So you can wear them, but it's not required anymore.
Okay. And kind
great
of
question though, because it's been very confusing, especially because
I know.
Yeah,
Subways,
and for a while, COTA required a mask when other places in Columbus did not. So it was very confusing to people because we follow federal guidelines, which go over and above what the local guidelines are. So
it's not just COTA, it's the entire nation. I realize that.
Yeah, but that's where our guidelines come from, just to be clear too. But that's a great question because it is very confusing.
Yes.
So Claire, given, going along with that, I'm thinking about, are there other misconceptions about COTA that are kind of out there, right? I named one here.
Sure.
Harry's got another question, right? So what are other things that maybe we want to clear up for folks who might be interested in the travel training if there was something that they knew that was a little bit different, right?
So I think that, so transit doesn't work for every trip, right? Like sometimes taking a bus is not going to be the option for what you need to do, but it can be the option. And sometimes it's a really good option because you might not be able to drive, you might not want to park, you might not want to drive. You might be able to drive, but you might not want to drive because of the weather or because of maybe it being dark or something and not wanting to drive at that point in time. But it's one of those things that I really do think, like, if you can do it a couple of times with someone and figure out, if you have a regular trip you take, if you can figure out how to do that with someone that you feel comfortable with, then you can do it again on your own. Like, it is something that it's a skill that you can learn. And it's once you know what to look for and what to expect, it's pretty much, you're going to do the same thing every time, especially if you're going to the same place over and over again. If you have a job, you have a regular commute somewhere, or if you have a regular doctor's appointment, or even to the grocery store, or to the mall, it's something where once you feel confident in doing it on your own, you can. It might be something that you can do on your own. And I think that it's a skill that really opens up the world to people. I really enjoy doing travel trainings with younger people because it's a skill set that if you can figure out how to ride the bus in Columbus, Ohio, you can figure out how to ride the bus anywhere. Like I've figured out how to ride the bus in China, and I don't speak Chinese and I don't read Chinese, but I could figure it out because I had figured out transit here first. So
Very nice.
There's a question about.
Yeah,
Okay,
Charlotte has a great question here.
Yes. Okay, so the question is, how do you pay the fee that is required for each of these? Cash, app. In regards to the app, what are you able to see about your trip when you're using one of these services, such as the route the driver will be taking, where the vehicle is actually. So great question. And I don't have one answer. I have multiple answers for each of the services. So with our big buses, you can use cash. We also have a new app that you can use to pay the fare. It's called the Transit app. We've partnered with them. It's an app that will also help you find your route. It will help you figure out, it locates you where you are, and it will show you all the different transit options around you. It also will show Uber and Lyft and the scooters and the bikes that you can rent. And you can set up an account and pay for your fare from there, which is great. And something that I can help teach people on. We also have some videos and some instructions on our website about that. Now for COTA Mainstream, it's two-pronged. So our core COTA service, let's see if I can get back to that page. So our core COTA service, which is the shared ride, $3.50 per ride. You can do a couple of things. You can pay $3.50 in cash. We can't give you change though, and it's a difficult amount of money to come up with sometimes, which is not the easiest thing. But you can buy tickets ahead of time. You can buy them from our office downtown at 33 North High, or you can come to the office that I work out of at 1330 Fields Avenue, which is our mobility services building. It's a little easier to get to. It's easier to park. If you're riding mainstream, it's easier to get there as well. Or you can buy a monthly pass. If you're using the service regularly enough, if you take 15 round trips a month, it's the equivalent of buying a monthly pass. So if you have like regular doctor's appointments, or you're taking mainstream to work, the monthly pass might be the best bet. Now, our on-demand system is different. You have to call in, set up an account, and give them a credit card or debit card, and then they charge you after your ride is done based on how far you have gone. So that works more like an Uber or Lyft situation, except for that it's all on the phone. So that one you can't see when the car is coming, but I think you sometimes can get a text. Now with our core program, the web booking portal, where you'll be able to book a ride online, you're actually going to be able to see, and I think like within 10 or 15 minutes of your ride, the vehicle approaching you. So you'll be able to watch on your phone or on your laptop or tablet or something. You'd be able to watch the vehicle coming to you. Now I don't think with any of these services, you're going to know the routes they're going to take. And especially with COTA, our mainstream, our core program, if it's a shared ride, you might end up picking up other people after you. So that has all done with an algorithm with the booking to try and figure out how to make it as efficient as possible to pick people up along the way. So you won't know where you're necessarily the route you're going to take for that. And then with COTA Plus, if you're using the app to book a ride, you will also be able to see the bus coming towards you. Again, you won't be able to see the route the driver is going to be taking once you're on the vehicle though. I think I got all the answers. And that in COTA Plus, you set up an account and with a credit or debit card, either on the app or with the customer service person, and then they set that up and do it that way over the phone. That does not take cash, COTA Plus.
And if we have questions about this, well, but everything is listed on your website, right?
It is. It is.
Is there like a number to call if you just have those kinds of
Yes.
questions? You put up the COTA mainstream number. Would that be the same
Yes.
number for all of these?
It's 614-228-1776. I'm pretty sure. The 1776, I think the 228 is the correct number. I say it a lot in other presentations that I do. Lisa, I see your hand is up.
Yes.
Hi there. Thanks for
Hi.
joining us tonight. Hi, everybody. Good to see everyone. I have a question. Well, I love the question about the phone number because I am not suffering massively from any TBI right now, but I'm confused with all of the information now. And so I'm really happy to hear that there's a phone number. I assume that there's a real live human being that can get us where we need to go with that phone number.
Yes.
Okay.
I'm going to put it in the chat.
Okay, awesome. I assume it's too.
It's one of those, the customer experience, the customer service people know everything at COTA. It's kind of amazing. I sit near one person who covers it sometimes, and if I ever have a question about what's going on, I ask her before I ask anyone else because they usually know what's happening. And if you're ever using like a big bus and you're confused about where you are or how you need to get to home, or if you find yourself someplace and you're like, I need to get home from here, you can call our line and tell them where you are and explain where you need to go. And if our buses go there, they will walk you through that. They will help figure out routes. If that's confusing, they can also talk through any of the different services we provide. The mainstream number, they might forward you over to talk to one of our staff members, but they really do know lots of information and are very friendly. And if you can be clear, if you can tell them where you are and where you need to go, they will try and figure out how to get you there on a COTA bus. So,
well, my other question, if it's okay,
yeah.
I don't live in Franklin County. I work in Franklin County. My doctors are in Franklin County, but I had a tremendously difficult time getting transportation just minutes from the edge of Franklin County. It was to the point where my husband had to leave his job.
Oh no.
Because I couldn't get transportation. I wasn't in the military. I'm not a veteran. I'm not old-ish.
Yes, so you fall through the cracks.
Yes, I make enough. I have enough money in the bank that I didn't meet certain criteria in that regard. So I was stuck.
So this is something that is a real problem for lots of people. The way that transit is done in the state of Ohio is county-based. And the way that it's funded by the federal government is based on whether or not your county is deemed rural or urban. And there's all of these different weird math equations that they use to give us funding for things. But it's really hard if you live just outside of the county that has all the services like Franklin County. Because COTA can go a little bit into different counties. Like we do have some park and rides. I should have actually included a slide with our park and rides on it. I'm sorry that I didn't. Because there are places where if you can get to a park and ride, you can access our services, like you can get on a bus at least. But if you live outside the county, I don't think you can get access to mainstream because it's just within the county because that's how the laws are written. And it's really, really frustrating, especially as we continue to grow as a region. I think that county line doesn't make as much sense today as it did 50 years ago or 60 years ago, because our regions are growing and are multi-county, and it's really difficult. And I don't have a good answer for you, and I'm really, really sorry I don't. Yeah, what county do you mind if I ask?
Union.
Okay. Yeah.
I was given from my head trauma folks who are a wealth of information, it was a 3-page list. I still have it of all the sources. And my family and I, we called every number on the list and I didn't qualify for any of it. It was heartbreaking. And I thought, what if I was more impaired or didn't have family to help? make all those calls. It just, it was a massive undertaking. I know it doesn't seem like it would be, but it
Oh
was.
no. If anyone that's ever had to call government about any questions about how a service works knows that that's a very difficult undertaking. And I wish that I had a better answer for you.
Okay,
And
thanks for.
it breaks my heart every day, because I know that there are just like, there's a line, literally like a random, a line that was drawn hundreds of, like, how old is Ohio? You know, like, when did we become a state? When did these counties get formed? And that line indicates whether or not you can access some services sometimes. And it's arbitrary in modern life. So I'm very sorry that that was so difficult.
I appreciate the empathy, but you're doing a lot of great things for most people. So maybe someday, optimism.
Yeah. Well, it will be interesting to see, as regions continue to get larger, if things change in terms of how transportation is or transit, especially, like how that is those services are provided. But right now, structurally, like, it's in the Ohio Revised Code. So like, we're stuck.
Claire, I want to come back to this, but I want to get to some of the questions that we have there, because I have a couple follow-ups. Okay, so Joy, I see your note. Yes, agree. So Teresa Scott Woods said, my son just qualified for mainstream, but we haven't used it yet. We understand that you have to schedule in advance. Our question is, were he to use it for work with predictable hours, right? So on a regular basis, could that person end up having the same van, the same drivers, maybe the same fellow riders? Is it something that might be more familiar as you go through that program?
I think to some extent, but drivers' shifts change, and sometimes drivers, move around. I think that you would end up having, you would know probably a handful of drivers. You might not have the same one every time. We can't promise that because of I don't know, just, you never know who's working that day specifically, or, with turnover and things like that. But I do think you end up knowing a lot of the drivers, and it sounds like, from what I can tell, I take Fridays in the office and help do pass sales. So I help sell tickets for mainstream. And I think that you do seem to know the people that you see a lot, but you might not have the same person every time. But if you're regularly commuting, you might end up having the same people if they have the same regular hours as you. So maybe, I can't promise that. But if you have questions about, if you want to like take a trip on mainstream before, like to lunch or something, or do something a little less stressful for a trip, just to test it out, I always suggest that for any of our services. Like, if you're going to use it for something regularly, like, take a test drive for it, take a test ride sometime.
But I mean, it does sound like it's a little bit more familiar than if you were to call up an Uber driver, right? Because then,
yes,
at least you got that
there's
smaller
a stable
set of people.
Yeah, there's a stable of drivers, and it's also like, if you take the same bus every day, you'll end up seeing people on your commute, and you'll end up knowing the drivers that way a little bit. But again, I can't promise it'll be the same driver every time, but you'll probably have the same couple, would be my guess.
All right. I don't see anything else in the chat yet. So maybe just a quick question on, are there any health or ability considerations that we should be aware of?
What do you mean?
So in terms of, if people are taking mainstream, if they're taking any of these services, are there, wheelchair accessibility,
okay,
those kinds of things, what age limit does a person have to be 18 years old to take this, that kind of
Oh,
thing?
great question. So for mainstream, I don't actually know off the top of my head how old you have to be to ride by yourself, but we do take a lot of students with autism that go to different schools that focus on that, and they ride by themselves. On our big buses, you can't ride by yourself if you're under the age of 13, but I think it's different on mainstream, and I don't know the age. I'm so sorry. I can't remember what it is. But for COTA Plus and our fixed route service, you need to be 13 or older to ride by yourself, but you could take a younger sibling. And that goes for COTA Plus as well. And mainstream, I think it might be 8, but I'm not 100% on that. But I think that we do take younger students to and from school.
And Claire, it's my understanding too, the driver cannot go into a home and help escort a person out of the home. And that when they get to their destination, I'm sorry, I'm Joy, I'm a social worker at Outpatient.
No, that's okay. No, you're fine.
But one of the things I talk with people about is the driver can't get you downstairs. The driver can't go into your home and assist you.
They can come. So with mainstream, they can come up to your door and they can help you from your door, and they can help you with a couple of bags.
Okay.
So that's not, so with mainstream, they can help you from your door, not into your house. They have to keep an eye on the vehicle, but they can, as long as they have sight of the vehicle, they can help you up to the door, and they're trained to help with that. Our fixed route service, they're not going to leave their seat. With COTA Plus, they're also not going to leave their seat. But all of our vehicles are, most of the vehicles with COTA Plus are wheelchair accessible. Because of the pandemic, we weren't able to, it was very hard to get vehicles in 2020. It's still kind of hard to get vehicles because of all of the stresses on the marketplace. But so not all of those are wheelchair accessible, but you can set up your account if you have a mobility issue and you need a vehicle to come with a ramp or with a lift, and we can make sure that that vehicle goes to you. But all of our other services are wheelchair accessible. That was going back to your previous question, sorry. I realized I didn't answer that part of it.
No worries. And then I'm curious to know about services like this, right? So this is, to me, this is a new world, right? Of what public transport can be here, at least in Central Ohio. Around the state, let's say, are you, what other programs are like this, or what other cities have maybe something that we might be looking for?
Well, our mainstream on-demand is pretty unique. I think more places around the country are trying to figure out how they can offer more services outside of that required ADA geography, but it's been difficult for other places. We've ended up being really successful at being able to provide a lot more service that way. And during the pandemic, for the first, I don't know, about over a year, all of COTA services didn't have any fares. You could ride without paying fare for over a year, during sort of the height of everything, our first height of everything, I guess. And what we found was that our on-demand service, the usage of it went through the roof, because all of a sudden what was a premium cost was now free for a while. And we found out that that is a very elastic, much more elastic service than we realized. A lot of places, those trips are called non-ADA because it's sort of beyond the ADA requirement, which I think is the most confusing designation, because it is an ADA trip. It just goes beyond that federal requirement. And I wish it was called like ADA plus or something, because it would make more sense to what is actually happening. So I apologize for the confusing name. But what we found was that we can actually provide a lot more service there than we thought we could. Most other places, those non-ADA trips, those ADA plus trips, they're capped in some way. So they're capped with cost, like they usually cost a little bit more, or they're capped with how many non-ADA trips you can take a month, because places are worried that they won't be able to provide the right level of service to people. But we've found that that's way more elastic for us, the way that we set it up, than in other places. So I think that's been something that is unique. The COTA Plus is also something that a lot of different transit agencies have been trying to figure out. In the transit world, we call it our first mile, last mile problem, which is very, very nerdy transportation talk, for trying to figure out how to get someone from their house to the bus stop, that first mile to the bus stop, and the last mile from the bus stop to wherever you're going. So the COTA Plus came out of us trying to figure out, like, how can we get people further than where our larger buses can go? And what started as maybe trips from bus stops to people's homes was zone based, and anywhere within this zone you can go wherever you need to go with this service. So that has evolved, and that's also just based on like mobile technology that's available to people. You know, those are all things that are sort of emerging in the field of transit specifically. So, and I think we're kind of on the cutting edge of some of that. So, which means also that it's not perfect and we're still working through things, but you know, it's interesting to be able to work in it right now because we're doing some innovative things.
So it sounds like we're kind of taking a sneak peek at the future of transit as opposed to, you know, sort of being the average here.
Yeah, I think that transit is going to mean a suite of services rather than just buses that run on, you know, certain routes or trains that run on certain routes. I think it's going to mean a lot more things in the future, and it will be very interesting.
So, okay, so now going between the futuristic service that we have here and the old lines that we were talking about a little bit before. All right, so this is the question I wanted to come back to. So it sounds like you've done a lot of work at COTA and probably, you know, beyond just the one organization to get these services in place, to be able to do this testing, to be able to, you know, provide these unique opportunities. If we want to try and see that extended to really the Columbus area rather than the Franklin County area, you know, what actions can groups like brain injury survivors take in order to try and, you know, exert a little bit of influence on the things that we might not be able to control?
Well, so every 2 years, the statewide transportation budget is up for renewal. And letting your elected officials know that transit should be funded and more money should go to that so we can continue to do more innovative things and try and provide service to more people. It's something that's always sort of on the chopping block when it comes to funding. So I think that's one way of doing it. And also, you know, advocating for maybe more flexible ways of doing things. So the county line thing is a really big issue. And it really does hurt people that live just outside of, you know, the main county, which is Franklin for us, right? It's different in different cities or different regions, but transportation is hard and it's expensive, and it's not going to get less hard or less expensive from what I can see of the world right now. So advocating for more choice and more options for people, because again, like transit doesn't work for every trip, but your car doesn't work for every trip or every person, a single car, a single person driving a single car. So more options and more, funding for more options. There are some really cool things happening in different pockets of Franklin County with senior transportation, but that's an age limit thing too, because, you know, I think it's important to help people as they age because of funding, because of costs and abilities and things like that. But, you can have a traumatic brain injury at any age and not be able to drive for a while or maybe forever after that. And just because you are under the age of 65 doesn't mean that you don't also have needs. And if you don't live in the county that can help you the most, like, it's not fair. So I don't know. I that's what I would advocate, is more funding for more transportation options and more flexible ways of using that money.
And is that advocacy best placed in your home county because of those designations, or is that maybe at the state or federal level?
Yes. I mean, I think that our local officials can always be reminded that transportation should be easier and we should have more options. I think that is something that everyone should be advocating for, because even, like there are some cool things that are happening in Union County, but it is still, just to use Union County again, but it's still like, it might be limited to Marysville. And if you don't live in Marysville, you might not be able to take advantage of certain things. But making sure that people know, elected officials might have nice cars and might be very used to driving themselves and not have to worry about it. And they might not realize that that's not an easy option for everyone. So I think that reminding your elected officials of their constituents and their needs and how those are varied is always important. I don't even know if I'm allowed to say that as a COTA employee, but that is my personal opinion. I'm not one of our
Sure.
government advocacy people, but I do believe that. I think that every government level should be reminded that, life is difficult for lots of us.
We'll have asked that question of Claire Jennings and not necessarily.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. But yeah.
Lisa, I hope that helps maybe point yourself in a direction, right? Okay, so we've got just a handful of minutes. If anybody's got a question out there,
wax poetic about transportation funding. I used to do more with policy stuff than I do right now. So
I remember when we first talked, it sounded like you had that background.
Yeah. So, and I'm a big transportation nerd. So if you wanted to ask me about any other sort of transportation stuff, I can talk about that. I mean, I also believe, that I'm a pedestrian. I'm a committed pedestrian. I used to be able to walk to work. It was great. I can't walk to work anymore, but now I work for a bus service, so I can do that instead. But I think that not enough is put into pedestrian safety as well. If we're all still able to, most of us are born, with walking being our first mode of transportation, if not being held or strolled around in a stroller. But I do, I could talk for a long time about safety for pedestrians as well, but that isn't why you asked me here today. So.
Well, we just to stick to the driving side of things.
Yeah.
So folks, I just want to kind of wrap up here, because this will be the last time we catch up with each other for a little while, at least on camera. So first off, thank you so much for attending these. It makes my Wednesday nights great, and if that's enough, that's at least enough for me. But it's really great to see the attendance out here. We had, I think, a really great month to cap off. Some great conversations about the hope that there is for driving after you've had a brain injury, or after you've had a limitation on your ability to drive. We had some really good information on what driving rehab looks like. Ohio is actually a pretty good place to get driving rehab done. And if you're in the central Ohio area, it seems like there's a decent amount of resources for you. And if that's just not for you today, and if that's not for you, maybe in the long run, here's some options for you. So I appreciate all the speakers that came and talked about their different areas, paint this whole picture for us. So again, we will be out for the summer, but we'll be in touch. We'll be sending emails, so look out for those. We'll have more content for you, and we'll have hopefully more insight into what the topics will be for the fall. If we are going to go back to an in-person component, but I think we are going to be keeping the Zoom portion of this just because it is easier to connect, especially if you're not in the Columbus area. So definitely keep an eye out for our emails. Julie will be sending those as she always does. So take a look for that. Claire, thank you so much for rounding us out.
Thanks for having me. I really appreciate. I mean, I do a lot of outreach about what COTA provides and stuff like that, but I really hope that it can be helpful. You know, I know that it's hard. I hope that we can help on some level. It's still like overly complicated, but unfortunately life is overly complicated. But if you need any help, give us a call. So thank you.
All right. And we'll make sure Claire's information is out there in some of the follow-up emails as well.
Yeah, great. Because I can put it, I was like, contact me, but I'm not going to give you that information. But yeah, thank you.
We'll make sure to email that out. Yeah.
Please do.
All right, folks.
Thanks, everyone.
Thank you so much.
Bye.
Have a good summer, everybody.
Bye, everybody. Thank you.